Thanks, Matt, very much, and Carl as well. So for everyone there, if you haven't had a chance to put in a question, feel free to do so. What we're going to do now is just looking at the first one here, and it says, what are the top challenges that Zora has experienced in deploying predictive churn solutions in ensuring that your approaches, are optimized in your customer accounts? And I think I'm going to throw this Carl's way, please.
Okay, so just to repeat, I think the question was the top challenges we've experienced deploying predictive churn solutions.
Yes, in your actual execution. Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's certainly a lot of challenges. I'd say one top challenge that everyone who's worked with data science knows is actually the data. Oftentimes the science part is easy compared with collecting data from a variety of different sources. So I'd say getting a data pipeline set up is definitely a challenge. And what we found at Zora is that we need customers who are motivated on the project and someone on the project who's really knowledgeable, of the company's technical infrastructure really needs to be involved to make sure that we can get, the data uploaded correctly and in a timely manner. And if you can't get the plumbing in place, then the kitchen's not going to work. So after that, I did kind of say the science part is often the easiest. So after getting the pipeline set up, definitely the hardest part is turning predictions into successful churn reduction. There are a variety of reasons for this. Going beyond the interpretability issues that I already discussed. Many of our customers find that the accounts most likely to churn are the hardest to save, and that's a difficult reality that we all have to face in this area. How's that, Cindy?
That's incredible, Carl. Thank you. I think maybe the only point that I might add on to that is that the client needs to really, really embrace the importance to get this right, and that their leadership is so critical because below the surface often it's a mess, and that's what we discover, right? And that's what good, smart data sleuths discover. The organization leadership needs to stand taller, and I underscore taller, to really embrace that data is a strategic asset. It's a competitive advantage, and I still see a lot of sloppiness. So I really, think this is something at the board of directors level, that we don't have enough board director members in our publicly traded companies that really understand the depths of these different approaches and methods. And I think we've got some knowledge gaps that are going on. They can articulate the business problem, but they don't necessarily sustain and enable the journey to really get data right. So that's my little extra punch there on in terms of for everybody that's here to consider. Next question I'm going to throw Matt's way is, Matt, what functionality is the most unique in terms of your Zora Predictive Churn Analytics offerings? And as you look at what you do versus the competitive landscape, what makes you stand out? Or I guess the point here is what differentiates you in the market?
Sure. Yeah, this one's pretty short for us. The first is when I look at other order to cash platforms, we're first of all, we're really the only vendor that's pushing forward with predictive churn models, particularly in the order to cash space. But then against other churn models or predictive models in general, it's the score decomposition that Carl mentioned. It's the ability to not only come up with a value, but then to decompose that value into the drivers that ultimately make it interpretable. If I'm a sales individual, if I'm a CSM, if I'm an individual on the finance team, I can look at the number, I can see the engagement score, and I know exactly why this customer has high or low engagement compared to other accounts, and then I could actually do something about it.
Thanks, Matt. So I think the next question, if you guys are okay, I'm going to throw it my way. The question is, when is a company ready to develop a predictive churn analytics data strategy and an implementation plan? Well, I think if you're asking the question now, if you're certainly a large company or you're a little bit late to the table, I'd probably say, because it's imperative that we're all moving in this direction. But at the end of the day, your corporate culture is probably the most important thing in terms of the transparency and authenticity, in terms of valuing customer loyalty and embracing retention. And many organizations have that as a core value, but if you drill down into all the leadership behaviors, their incentive plans, the process alignments, the clarity, not everybody is aligned in really demonstrating that. So when you step back and look at the question, kind of reinforces you have to ask yourselves, if you're ready, well, do you have sufficient data sources to even start experimenting to apply some of these methods? You need, not just quality, but it's never going to be 100%. I mean, let's all be clear about that. But certainly you want a significant enough baseline that it's worth the deep diving. And I think what I've learned along the way is probably kind of just echoing the points that I was mentioning earlier. You really need the leadership, you need the alignment, you need to dive deep on the diagnostics to know what's there, what's not. Be very fact-based. One thing I love about working with data scientists and statistician folks, although sometimes we get a bad rap, is they're very, very precise on what they have, and they're very, very proud of those insights. We need to take the time to listen to the voices so that they're really heard. Next question I'm going to throw back to you, Carl, if you don't mind, is, putting on the visionary hat that you have and you wear often, what do you think is the future for predictive churn enablement? And what can we expect 5 years out, 10 years out, 15 years out? Matt, you can throw in some thoughts, I can, and what's our future going to be like? Because this too will pass.
Well, I hope my answers don't disappoint you, Cindy. I'm not really going to say 5 years or 10 years out. We'll probably have a whole bunch of different, technologies available then. Let's take more short term and just look at, what products like ours are going to be adding. Let's say 1 to 2 years out. I think we're going to see a lot more focus on A/B testing, which is once you use these tools to identify a target segment for some kind of churn reduction campaign, what you're going to want to do is test out different methods. And so one thing we see on the horizon and we're very excited about is integration of A/B testing functionality directly into insights, so that you can take the result of past engagement campaigns and use it to improve. Beyond that, I'm not really the kind of data scientist who goes for hyperbole and, in 5 years or 10 years we're going to do. But I'll leave it open to you guys to add your thoughts here.
Thanks, Carl. Matt, what do you see?
Same thing with Carl. I mean, for us on the product standpoint, as we keep pushing with Zuora, the big macro trend that we're riding as a company is that more and more companies are changing their entire business model to focus around their customer. So predictive is just one major piece of that, which is how can companies know, have a centralized subscriber identity that they can really use to drive a completely different type of experience. So as we keep moving forward at Zuora, not only our insights product, but our different products and services are really going to focus on that trend. So the immediate need for us in terms of what we're doing next with predictive is what Carl had kind of talked about, which is how do we actually evaluate if I take one action versus the other, what does it actually do to my retention? And then longer term for Zuora, we keep focusing on how do we make it easier as possible for companies of all shapes and sizes to actually develop a true, subscriber identity that they can run their entire operations around and then shift their entire business model. We see every company moving that direction.
Yeah, what I'm seeing, and thank you for those comments. What I see right now is there's lots and lots of experimentation going on, which is fabulous, and lots of diverse product solutions, vendors, niche players, broader players. But if you think about the analogy of a new highway, right, with the electricity and the sockets, I do think there's going to be a lot of shakeout over the next 10 years, consolidation, because, at the end of the day, there's breadcrumbs, as we know, all over the place, right, for customer insights. And so if we're going to kind of be able to see all of that data and be able to get to that, you want to call it a 360 view, there's going to have to be some choices. So I think it's going to be a really interesting time. I mean, we're obviously a very niche player with what we do. Your company has a much broader solution set. But you look at, the kind of entrance with Google moving into this space, IBM aligning with Salesforce makes you wonder, who's going to buy who. So I'm really quite curious, in the sense of the reshaping of the Fortune 500 landscape. And my prediction will be Zora will be one of the top 500. How about that? And so that's a nice way to kind of talk about incredible growth. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're almost at the top of the time that we'd allocated. I'd like to thank all of you for attending today's webinar session, brought to you by SalesChoice from our Predictive AI World Leadership Forum series with our incredible guests, Matt and Carl from Zora. You can always contact us easily. This material will actually be out in video next week, and you'll all receive access to this. I also wanted to take a moment to promote our next session, which will be on July 19th, developing a proven sales forecasting operating process. We'll be featuring Karen Hayward. She's a managing partner and chief marketing officer in the Valley at Chief Outsiders. She'll be talking about her pathway to success. And it's really about customer enrollment for sales enrollment. And we see some of those activities that could be actually very predictive in terms of metrics. And we'll be joined by Dr. Kevin Francis, who's actually the chairman of our company, former CEO and chairman of Xerox Canada. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming out today. And it's always a pleasure hosting, incredible people that are making a difference in our worldwide economy and